What's up?
What's up?
What's up, teacher?
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Good evening, Foxboro. I am Nick Brancaccio, and I am a reporter for our new hit show, What's Up, brought to you by Foxboro Cable Access and produced by Foxboro Youth Productions. Now, we are here at the Orpheum tonight to report on the new Human Trafficking Summit. Now, we are going to see if we can get a few interviews with some of the local people there, and we will see what we'll learn. So, Mr. Bill, I have a quick question regarding the Rotary Club for you. So, would you say that the Rotary Club has made good progress throughout the past 5 or so years in spreading awareness about human trafficking?
I will. I'm very happy to say that we have done that, especially this year. Human trafficking wasn't so well known, or the issue was not so well known, up until the last year or two. And thanks to the Foxborough Rotary Club, it is now becoming, we're getting much more awareness about it. So I am thrilled to say that, I'm sad to say that it's happening now, but I'm thrilled to say that it is happening now.
And Miss Mary, if I may ask, would you say perhaps that it's a really good sign that, because I know from my high school, throughout the high school, over $3,300 were collected and raised by my school to cover the cost of the event. Would you say that that's a very good sign?
Absolutely, I'm very impressed. That's amazing. And I know that the school was also really involved with putting together the pamphlets and all the marketing materials. You've got a lot of talent over at that high school.
Well, thank you very much for that. I have a question for you. Would you say that throughout your work and throughout the human trafficking summits, would you say that it's empowering the community?
It absolutely is. Again, I wish I could say that awareness was around 4 or 5 years ago, but it really wasn't. Even I did not understand how severe the incidents were. So it is wonderful that we now are bringing it to the forefront and we can start to deal with it properly.
And a question for both of you, actually. Would you both say that the human trafficking summits thus far have made good progress in spreading awareness and in getting things done regarding to stop the human trafficking?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree. I don't know if we can stop it, but we're going to make great strides. And these kinds of summits and discussions and conversations are really important to have. So.
Well, thank you first very much for being on here. I really appreciate it. And for my first question, I'd like to ask, do you think that law enforcement is putting enough time and enough resources into combating human trafficking?
The challenges for law enforcement are pretty extensive. This is a very new statute in terms of police and the court's response. It was only put on the books in 2012. Massachusetts is one of the last states to actually have a state statute to address human trafficking. So I think that it's a new area for a lot of police, and I think that as we move forward, more and more agencies are becoming better equipped to manage it, but it is extremely time intensive and it's resource intensive. So I think we will definitely need more resources and time and attention. So we're getting there, but I don't think we're there yet.
Would you say that state and federal governments are putting enough the resources and the time into combating human trafficking for it to begin its decline?
Yes, one of the biggest challenges with human trafficking, or specifically the sex trafficking that I work in more than any other type of crime that I've worked, is that it requires so many disciplines or professionals be involved with each and every case. So it's not just a law enforcement problem or a prosecutorial or a social service problem. You need to have all of those systems come together to work together, and that internally is a very new dynamic and a very challenging one. But I think, again, we're making great strides in this state. It's just going to take a little bit of time to kind of get it to where it's a cohesive kind of well-oiled machine.
Would you say that so far these human trafficking summits have been effective in spreading awareness and in getting the attention of local governments?
I think this is fantastic. It's one of the most important things that we need right now. With this kind of still being in its infancy stages, the more people that become aware of this and understand the complexities of it, is going to significantly impact the reporting levels because one of the biggest challenges is a lot of the victims don't self-identify as victims, therefore they're not going to report a crime. But the more that we have professionals within the field that can, whether it's an ER nurse or a school nurse or a school resource officer or a community member who recognizes or that sees something, say something, if they can report something to the proper places, we can then investigate it. But so something like this is without a doubt super important and very effective.
So just for our last question, as you are the state police commander of most of the operations going on to combat human trafficking and specifically sex trafficking right now, would you say that the state police has been effective in cracking down on human trafficking, and not just law enforcement, but specifically your unit in state police?
So the state police, I run just one unit. I have 3 people assigned to the unit. So unlike any of the other departments, we're short-staffed. We don't have enough resources still allocated, and some of that's beyond our control because of budgetary constraints and what have you. So, but I think as there's more awareness and more higher level responses, you're going to need more and more people that can effectively conduct the investigations and facilitate the prosecutions.
All right, thank you very much for your interview. It was a pleasure having you on.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much. So, Paula, how would you think that the Rotary Club is doing recently in terms of spreading awareness about human trafficking?
Well, I think this summit is a very good example of that. Organizing all this energy and need to know information has been very helpful, I think, to the community. I think they're going to be rudely awakened as to what's going on with trafficking out right in front of us, right in our communities.
Would you say that Massachusetts is not safe from human trafficking and that it's happening here in neighboring communities and in Foxborough?
Absolutely. It's happening in small towns, it's happening in big cities, it's happening across the country, and it's right in front of us, but we don't see it because they do a very good job covering the tracks.
Well, just one more question. Would you say that throughout the 5 or so years of the organized effort to combat human trafficking, would you say that the Rotary Club has made sufficient progress in spreading awareness and in getting the problem to be reduced?
Well, I think this recent action by the Rotary Club is demonstrative of the concern that we should be having in giving it some light. So I think maybe it hasn't been an ongoing issue, but in light of the recent news and news in the last few months about trafficking, I think the Rotary Club did a good job grabbing onto that issue and providing a forum in which people can become informed and even take action if they want.
So, just to wrap it all up, would you say, finally, that the amount of attention that the Rotary Club has been received by town officials, by state officials, and by country and federal officials, would you say that organizations like law enforcement and all that are doing enough to combat the issue? Are they putting enough resources in?
Well, I can't answer that question as an expert or anything like that. I think the problem, as it reveals itself and it gets more exposure, will get the proper attention. And I think law enforcement is doing what they can with what they have, but I think with any problem like this where you have to fight the insidiousness of it, it takes a while to break through and make any headway.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. What about yourself?
I'm Sister Margaret Ann Meyer, a medical missionary of Mary for over 60 years. And I entered in Winchester in Massachusetts in 1956. And after profession, I went to Ireland to study medicine. And I worked as a medical doctor in Uganda, Tanzania, and Nigeria. And I'm home for the last 18 years going around with mission education in schools, telling the children about missionary childhood, children helping children, and I loved it and I got involved in human trafficking through, it's an organization in New York, in Manhattan, Committee to Stop Human Trafficking, and I learned a lot, and being a doctor, I was never in business, so I've taken to corporate responsibility. Are businesses really getting supply chains? Are they looking into forced labor? And because a lot of times sexual exploitation is the same as forced labor, they're connected.
So would you think that smaller events like this one here in town, would you say that they are helping contribute local unity, and would you say that they're spreading awareness about human trafficking?
Yes. The Trafficking in Persons report has asked the local communities to be advocates in looking out in your community. Like right now, I'm staying in a beautiful motel, Holiday Inn. I'm going to ask the manager, what is your staff doing about looking for human trafficking? Because everybody likes to say, oh, it's not in Foxborough, it's not in Mansfield, it's out there, it's in Europe, it's not in the United States, but it is. It's all over. And we have to train people to look for it. So I'm very happy that the local community is involved.
So what would you say that your organization has done really right in combating human trafficking?
Well, our sisters are working very hard. One, I'll just talk about Nairobi in the slums. There is a development in human trafficking which is horrific. The people from Qatar are coming and offering money for a woman to be artificially inseminated and have a baby through cesarean section. The baby is taken back to Qatar, and the DNA test is done, and if it is a Qatar baby, they will harvest organs for transplant. That is horrific, and it kind of turns your stomach. So our sisters are trying to rescue, to prevent, to make awareness of human trafficking. So I think we're doing a lot.
Well, I agree. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful evening, sister. Would you think that local events like this are good for the town? Do you think that they thoroughly boost, I should add, awareness of human trafficking throughout our town and throughout our community?
Yes, I think they certainly should, because we're not really hearing too much about it until you have a sting, which is rare. And then when you read about a sting, you usually read about pimps and girls, and it's broader than that. And so this will give people the opportunity to really hear the whole story. Once you get to know what the whole story is, once you read these articles, then you can read more into it. And you can actually respond to those articles by calling or tweeting or texting. And that also then lets the people know who are publishing that they have an audience that knows something. But it's important to know also for this reason, because until we start speaking up about this, people in government aren't going to do too much about it because they have enough to do.
Well, that was actually part of my next question. So, do you think that local and federal governments are doing enough to combat human trafficking?
No, they know they're not. It's the squeaky wheel syndrome. However, they have enough on their plates. They have so many things they want to do. So when you have people who ask about it, or if at a town meeting or something, somebody gets up and asks, so what are you doing about trafficking? They might then say, well, think that, maybe I have to do something about this to get reelected. And also, don't forget that these girls who are trafficked have no voice, they have no power, they have no money. So why pay attention to them? That's how our society has developed things. It's too bad.
Well, just one last question. Would you say, since you obviously said that you didn't really think that local governments were doing enough, would you say that it is a good development that schools like my school, for example, which have donated over $3,000 for this event, would you say that things are starting to turn, and do you say that people are now starting to recognize the threat of human trafficking more as more and more comes out about it?
Yeah, I do. And I think, what grade are you in?
I'm in ninth.
Ninth grade. I speak at schools too, and colleges, and quite frankly, that's where I feel the hope is. Because I meet kids like yourself, and especially kids on a college level, that they're going into law enforcement, they're going into law, they're going into service work. Now, when they get in there, they're already going to know something about this. So they're not going to take over, but they're going to sort of guide it, and that's a great thing. And they are influencing other kids on campus, just like you might influence other kids in your school. So yes, I mean, if people think that this is just some terrible thing out there that happens and nothing's ever going to be done about it, why would they ever? Why would they think they would ever gear their education toward it?
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. I'm Nick Brancaccio with the Foxborough Cable Access.